Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What can I say? It is January 7th, 2022, and we are going to look at the astrology of the weekend leading up to Sunday, January 9th, which is our first quarter moon going to be squaring the Capricorn sun. This is our first real crisis here after the new moon that was the first new moon of 2022, right? That happened on January 2nd. And really giving us an opportunity to set some real intentions for personal growth and transformation through the process of fire, letting it burn. So, of course, it would just be perfect that our first quarter moon, of course, every time there is a Capricorn new moon, your first square after that is going to be Aries. But it seems really pertinent and important with Aries because there's the spark of fire, right? The spark of creation that really resides in each of us and is the beginning of our own subjective experience of is, right? That I am. And so I think it's appropriate that our first real crisis is going to have to do with the feeling of our will and the feeling of our subjective experience and really wanting to act on that particular experience of being. And when you have Capricorn, of course, this is all about the full experience, all of us together, what we contribute to, the power that it actually holds when we're all kind of locked together into this secure framework. And so much Capricorn energy is happening right now that little bit of feeling of within each of us, that personalized experience of who we are and what really lights us up and what is the spark of divinity at the center of us. We're going to start feeling into that while there is a lot of attention right now focused on the bigger picture, the larger institutions, the secure and collective framework that we're all part of. And it's kind of a confusing time because part of this process is Pluto being involved. So, and Venus is in her retrograde, going to be meeting the sun tomorrow. This is just a really pertinent time. So I've already recorded the weekly astrology that's going to be the generalized introduction to then all of the sign by sign astrology forecasts leading up to our full moon, which is going to be on the 17th. So I just want to take some time to get on here, check in with everybody, go over just, today and tomorrow and start to get into the first quarter moon astrology. But really it's just to kind of check in and see where everybody's at, because I would say in the last couple of days, it is pretty remarkable what has been going on and the intensity of it. So how is everyone doing? I'm checking in with the chat. I mean, the stream is pretty rough today, and I've been having some issues with that. I might have to, reformat the computer. There may be some technical work that has to go into cleaning this up, at least on this machine, but so stay with me. And of course, just know it's recording. So if you don't see it, you can always go to BitChute and get the recording, or you can certainly get the replay after this. But if there's buffering issues now, you're probably going to get them in the recording or the playback of the live stream. This is probably going to be one of the last lives on YouTube. I can see that there have been new algorithms instituted in a lot of these platforms very recently. You can just tell by the way that content is being interacted with, and certainly the measure of interaction from an audience, right? And people will tell you that all the time. Anybody that has remotely and I don't even think it's content related anymore. I think the algorithm really just does this in order to maximize the efficiency and the capitalization of YouTube as a business. So it may not even have anything to do with the content specifically as much as it's always shifting in subscriptions, right? The algorithm will take away likes from your video, right? In the last week, it's been saying that nobody's watching this when people absolutely have been and have been participating in the live chat. So we know that there's, things are really changing and shifting and very quickly and rapidly, as we've talked about last week, right? Or this past week with the transmissions and the intuitive reading of the transmissions. There's a swift impulsive energy that's about to come in, and there's just a lot astrologically that is participating in this process that we can harness and be in flow with, or we can resist it and be in dissonance. And then we are the ones individually and collectively that really, quote unquote, suffer as a result of that. So one thing I want to bring up, first of all, let's look at the chat and the stream here. It's been intense but good. I'm keeping my focus fixed on things of my choosing and not on what they want for us. We are in control. Yes, and I think that that's ultimately one of the best lessons of Yeshua or Jesus, right? Is that even down to the very basic level of your own bodily sovereignty and your own connection to source and what's true, even that, right? We are in control of ourselves. So as far as the public, everyone out there is sick. Being around the public is like dodging bullets. Okay, there's two things I want to bring up. Thank you, Emily, for your input and your participation and your insightful comments, right? Let's get out of studio mode here, and I want to just address a couple of things. Number one, the last couple of days have been very intense. People are, yes, they are sick, right? And I just posted something from Suspicious Observers for today's update on the solar weather. And what I did notice before I even listened to the video is, as I was going through all of my resources, what you'll see is that there is a really low threshold right now of actual solar weather, right? We're not getting any flares, no CMEs, not even a lot of geomagnetic activity, which also means that there is a lot more exposure to actual cosmic rays as opposed to our own soul, SOL, right? The name of our sun, our own sun or star's energy impacting us. So there is documented evidence, right? And this is spoken on by Ben in the video today about how cosmic rays, increase in exposure to cosmic rays really does impact our immune systems, cardiovascular health, even mental health symptoms. So just be aware of that even in the last 2 to 3 days, maybe longer, just this whole week, people have been experiencing some incredible things, right? And not always the most comfortable or even understandable, right? The moon in Pisces, right? Everything is so watery and nebulous and confusing, and you just get kind of melt in and taken in by the full experience of the collective at every level, emotionally, spiritually, quantum, right? Karmic, outside of time and space. It's the energetics of it all. And people have been going into spontaneous trance states, right? Where they're just like losing time and they're like, I don't know what I just did for 3 hours. I know I sat here, but what happened? People sleeping when they normally don't sleep. People sleeping like all the time, sleeping very deeply, incredible dreamscapes, just absolutely incredible. I can't even tell you the things. I've been like sleeping very deeply and having these incredible, vivid, just symbolically full types of dreams that I can't even begin to start unraveling for myself, just because I'm just like, just let it be, right? There's a lot of work happening in the unseen and the astral that is impacting people very distinctly. There was I have to substantiate this for myself, but because I haven't. So I just want to put that out there, that there was, as far as I understand it, a very impactful death in more of the conspiracy theory community of a particular content creator. Now, I have to find out for sure if that actually did happen, but the idea is that she passed away in the hospital and she had COVID, right? Like, you're going to see more of this, and people are going to get more, there's going to be more sick people, just like Emily said, and I think it's going to increase with this cosmic ray exposure right now, plus with the moon in Pisces, right? We can't really get away from the full experience of being in where we are right now, and I think that's going to have a really profound impact on people. Now, when the moon comes into Aries tomorrow, this is where that spark is going to start showing itself very subtly. Perhaps we will have much more flaring of our tempers and emotions into impulsive energy, into really speaking for ourselves, or certainly feeling that spark within us, right? This is when the kettle could possibly boil over. But what is steam other than the expression of water and fire coming together in an alchemical union, basically? So, and there's a really great little video that I'll post later after this that's just talking about steam and the end of time, right? That water turning into steam is just a phase change. Nothing has changed about the structure of those water molecules, just the state that they're in. And that's something to really, really consider when we're talking about these things. So if you're feeling just like, what the fuck is happening, right? Just keep in mind that that's a big part of it. The cosmic rays are going to just increase all of our vulnerability in some ways, and also to increase access to these realms, I would say, but also to just the last couple of days, there are big waves coming through, right? And this I have next week is really, and I talked about this in the report, so I won't go back into it because I really focused on the week coming up and leading up to the full moon. And this is what the astrology forecast for the signs is going to focus on. But it's going to really show us, where our true stabilized emotional self-esteem, protection, like where we belong, where we're loyal, right? And the compatibility that we truly have within ourselves. It's going to be shown, and it's going to be just right off of a conjunction with Pluto, the sun will be. So just be aware that the 17th through the sun moving into Aquarius on the 20th is going to be a really hot it's just going to be a very intense and hot button time. I've not been sleeping well, which is still unusual, but after 3 a.m. I've been having visions. Yeah, that's about the time, right? There's something about that time, 3 to 4 to 5 a.m., where the brain turns back on. And I'm sure if you look at the cycle of chi, I can't remember exactly 3 to 5, like if that's large intestine, I believe it is, right? And so when the large intestine channel turns on, that it's like deep cleansing type of stuff. And when you get those types of visions from your subconscious during that time, I do feel like that it's meant to really clear a lot of stuff out by getting access to nothing, to impressions and notions. And that's part of the moon in Pisces, right? Especially after it came across and met with Neptune. This was like, this is probably where I got my most intense dream experience last night, was when, the moon getting very close to Neptune around probably like 3 to 5 a.m. actually. And, I had some time on the ship, right? There was a return to the ship. I have my own tells in my dream state that I have learned over the years of the imagery that represents, leave more of an astral experience as opposed to your subconscious defragging itself. So I'm curious to see how people are doing, and please take very good care of yourself. It is like ramping up like you wouldn't believe. And of course, we talked about that this would be the time, and then getting more and more difficult. And then by February, something really breaks loose, right? Venus and Mars come together, and we kind of like activate this release from our own bondage. So right now it's kind of like this energy, like building, the potential energy building and building and building for that moment. I was really lucky to have the chance to be in a scalar healing chamber on Wednesday, which helped a lot. Is the influencer who was in the hospital MP? I hope not. No, it's Kirsten W. Right? She has done a lot of, and I'm not promoting what she's done. I'm not promoting what she's done. This is just clear. This is just strict factual, maybe factual. That's what I heard. I have to substantiate it for myself. She did a lot of decoding with gene decodes, and which I'm not a big fan. I think my personal opinion is a lot of these people got pulled in as an asset of a very large psychological operation to kind of keep us all in la la land. Whether or not that pans out to be true or not is going to be what time tells us, right? But I think that a lot of people meant well and got some real taste of influencer type of notoriety and really believed what they were doing. But I don't know. I don't know. No, it's not Magenta Pixie. Not that I know of. No, Kirsten W., right? Much more on the Patriot White Hat type of Q operation realm, right? And so if that's, I have to substantiate that, but that came up yesterday in a stream that I was watching on Twitch. And I believe she had been in the hospital. The reason I'm bringing this up is, be prepared. And that came through pretty strong at my moon meeting Neptune. Be prepared. I mean, people's energy and their souls will go where it needs to go. And it's going to happen, I think, at much more. Now, that doesn't mean that something didn't happen. I'm pretty sure that she was in the hospital. From what I understand, this person was in the hospital and not getting the appropriate treatment. That has seemed to be the case for a lot of people that are getting hospitalized for COVID. So, and I don't care about saying that shit anymore because I'll be leaving YouTube. So anyway, I'm going to get into the astrology. I just wanted to bring attention to these really potent energetics and what's coming through. And that way you can kind of utilize the astrological energy and the patterns that are being made in the cosmos in order to really either get out ahead of it, just be aware of it, right? And to maybe find a way to be in resonance rather than in dissonance, even in really difficult situations. And not saying that it won't suck, right? Or that things that are really challenging won't happen, but this really helps have a sense of, I think the astrology has a sense of understanding the language of what's happening so you can be in communion with it and direct the course of your life, right? To be just like Emily said, right? I'm focused on things of my choosing, right? And that's your mental awareness. That's your thought processes. That's your, that's all those things that have to do with being a sovereign human being that we do have control over, right? Now, part of that is unraveling how much has been superimposed on our and embedded in our subconscious, and that's work we all need to be doing. Hopefully, we have been doing it. I mean, this is a big part of what's going to be on the menu for a South Node in Scorpio. Wow. There's more coming for that, guys. There is. So this is just going to be quick. I don't want to get into an hour-long stream because I have a lot of recording to do today, and I'm excited about doing that and getting into that space. So let's look at the chart for today, because there is a lot of the goddess energy, right? Juno and Pallas Athena and even Mars are traveling in these relationships with Venus and the Sun. They're going to meet together in a conjunction. This is such a beautiful moment, but it also is going to illuminate a lot of where our comfortability is, where our wisdom is, right? Where our boundaries are with Venus and Capricorn, right? And certainly where the boundaries are in terms of the collective and the community and the fortress of our contributions that protect us and provide for us. So that's going to be, and Venus is still in her retrograde, right? This is so much about a deep inner inventory with her move through Capricorn. And a lot of people have their own conceptions and their own reads about Venus moving through Capricorn. And all of these themes seem very relevant. But in the retrograde in particular, what has struck me is the internalized, the inventory about the value of the larger pattern of reality that we're participating in and falling away from, and really being sensitive to our inner landscape, but energetically and sensually, like our senses of what that really feels like. And so there will be an opportunity for growth, accelerated growth. It's time to put on our big kid pants in some ways. Doesn't mean we have to necessarily grow up. You're going to see that with the first quarter moon and what that really represents. But sometimes you have to be asked to step up when you're not necessarily ready. And Venus and the Sun meeting in this conjunction are going to be very illuminating about what that really means for each of us in relationship to the actual world around us and its value, right? And the people, the situations, the projects that are valuable and who are valuable to us and our sense of sovereignty in the world, right? And a sense of safety. That is another part of Taurus because that's where Venus rules. And with Capricorn, the safety is created by the container of the relationships that are first formed in Cancer and then create a much larger structure of material reality. So lots of different themes here going on, but ultimately we're leading up to a first quarter moon that's not only going to pass Chiron, but is going to really test I would say that first crisis of just like, okay, well, the spark that's going to burn it all down has to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from within us, and it's going to come from this part of us that truly wants to be compassionate and take care of those who haven't fully gotten along yet. It's one thing for it all to burn down, but there's that part of us that wants to help those, to truly open our hearts and help those who have not quite, gotten to where maybe we have, right? So, and Saturn in Aquarius is, it's just like, here's the weather vane, right? It's just planted right in the ground. And it's like, just so you know, this is the barometer of what's to come. And it's very much, there's nothing pushing that around. That is like a sword in the stone. It's not going anywhere. So here is today's chart, and the 7th. Now, like I said, there's a lot going on here, and especially with like the moon transits. But I want to point out, we'll look at the moon transits, and then I'm going to bring you over to a different chart, because the goddess energy, Pallas Athena, with you have Venus. Clearly the sun is getting very close, even though that's not a goddess archetype. Black Moon Lilith is the only Gemini we have other than the moon's nodes, so that's important too. The Gemini aspect is so relevant. I mean, I would really take some time to go back over and review the last year and a half in terms of knowledge and the acquisition of knowledge and the experience of our own consciousness starting to expand, because that has been the direction of our soul's evolution this last 18 months, and with the North Node in the very first degree of Gemini. This is not only going to be in a sextile with the Aries moon at 0 degrees as the day turns over, but is also it's going to, we're going to it's like simultaneously personally emerging from a soul reckoning with everything that there is to tap into. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go along. And that certainly came up in the actual weekly astrology report that's going to be posted right after I'm done with this stream. I've already recorded it. And I would say, too, that if you're not familiar with Cliff High and his videos on BitChute, I recorded the report, and then I started listening to him, and I was like, God damn, it's like the same things I just said about the week. So whatever his analytics are, it's very lined up, right? It's very lined up. So let's look at this here. So we already see that the moon has passed Neptune. So I want to go back to no, not years. That's funny. There we go. I want to go back to, first of all, this was right as the day crossed over. You can see that the moon came into a square with Mars in Sagittarius. So, oh boy, Mars in Sagittarius, this is kind of like our last push, right? Because Mars this week is going to square Neptune in Pisces. So this particular square that happened, like I said, just look at this, right as the day turned over at least on the East Coast. So late last night, early this morning, you see that this square happening here. And this is really, Sagittarius is about the meaning that we derive from our collective and ritual, our collective relationships, our ritual binding, right? Whatever it is, our contractual obligations, whatever that 7th house means to you in terms of domestic, romantic relationships, business relationships, your relationship to yourself, your relationship to your community, your relationship to your neighbors, right? Anything that you want to wrap around that in terms of the interpersonal relationship, it's the meaning of it is really expressed and is powering the creation of something substantial in Sagittarius. So Mars here is like social justice warrior, but even more than that, it is acting on the meaning. It's not so much, it's like the coal fire is there of Sagittarius, the hot fire that's burned down and then becomes the catalyst for the alchemical process. And Mars here is just like is like it's like a fire-breathing dragon, right? It's just coming through and just like impulsively and very forcefully and aggressively in some ways shooting out this meaning in whatever direction is relevant to each of us where we find Sagittarius in our chart. And so to have this square 18 degrees of Pisces, right? This is well, let me find it here. And right before that is actually something that's even more relevant now that I'm talking about it. I'm kind of getting out of sync here because there's two different charts that I want to look at. So this particular square though, right, with a mutable square, these two are going to meet and kind of like find themselves morphing and changing and being malleable, and maybe not having necessarily the same level of impact as like a fixed square or even a cardinal square. But as Mars is representing, you know, it is the meaning that kind of shelters us from the full experience of what Pisces actually represents, or the full experience of the illumination of, you know, through light, for instance. There is a sense of not only protection from our culture and our beliefs and the collective meaning that we ascribe to, but it also, you know, is what kind of mediates the experience of coming to understanding, right? So there is a give and take in terms of Sagittarius, right? Because it can become overprotective. You can have really strict dogma, or you can have really you know, strict rules in terms of like, you know, entering into the realm of higher understanding, right? That there are certain things that you have to get yourself through, right? There's gatekeeping, that's what I'm trying to say, in Sagittarius for this higher level of understanding and wisdom. And it's the culture itself, it's the religion itself, it's the philosophies themselves that protect from direct gnosis when the consciousness is not ready. But Mars is just like, wow, whatever, right? And or it's going to be ultra protective. It's going to be acting on this meaning in some ways. But what we're going to find here is the moon squaring it is like, well, that's great, but at the same time, we are fully engaged not only in the experience, immersed, melted into it, no boundaries between us and what is out there. It's like we are in the show and watching the show at the same time. And so Mars is just like, yes, there's protection. We want to have this meaning that we're all kind of ascribing to as the impetus for Mars to charge forward. But really, what we're finding here again is that we each individually and at an emotional and feeling based level, like I said, we're in the show, we are the ringleader of the show, and we're simultaneously witnessing the performance at the same time. And you can't really do that as well when Mars is this warrior energy, this really impulsive, action-oriented energy, acting in its own self-interest to kind of protect us and to keep us cloistered into a particular belief system. And remember, K2 is in Sagittarius. This whole last year and a half, the South Node has been moving Sagittarius, showing us where we're moving away from. We've mastered this energy and we're moving away from it. And if Mars can be, you know, moving outwards in terms of giving us the courage to stand in our own understanding, then it will in some ways, I think, offer a bit more of the I don't want to say protection, but kind of, right? You don't want to go out into the sun without a sun hat or something, right? You want to have something that keeps you from burning out. It's just that when we don't know the difference between ourselves and the show with the moon in Pisces, which is what a lot of people have been experiencing, just fully immersed in it, and not knowing what's real or what's not. And that's been the case since Neptune's been in Pisces for years and years and years. And now that Jupiter's here, that it's just expanding this. And remember, Jupiter does rule also Sagittarius. So these are naturally square to each other, right? This is a natural square of 9th house to 12th house energy, belief systems and dogma to the full-on experience of being one with God. So you just take that right there and you can see that Mars, this is the last piece of Sagittarius. It really is for a while, except for the moon transits, right? At least until we get into the spring when the Gemini energy starts opposing all of it. But it's really important that we understand who Mars is working for us in order to find that, mediation and in some ways protection without overprotecting us, right? That's the other side of it too. It just depends on whose interest is Mars working in. That's a real important question to be asking yourself. So right before that happened, we saw, and this is again overnight. So if sleep has been hard for you, there's just, like I said, the moon in Pisces is very powerful, and those cosmic rays are no joke. So we also see that the moon was in sextile to the sun, right? This is great. This is the first real activating aspect since the new moon, right? Because the moon went through Capricorn, it went through Aquarius, and so it had that semi-sextile, right? That very subtle first half of it, and then the second half comes in. Boom, right? 16 degrees, 17 degrees Pisces to the sun. This is an activation moment for the new moon. 17 degrees of Pisces is participation in some sort of collective peak experience, right? Like a parade or some sort of coming together in recognition, not so much through ceremony or ritual or even dogma, but direct experience of rebirth in some way. And then the 17 degrees of Capricorn, this is going to be where Venus and Mars come together in February. This is big. That's a huge activation at that point. So that is also where the sun is right now, right? This degree, it was earlier this morning, last night, when the moon came into that sextile. So it's about, we're all there together, and we're all kind of having this experience of rebirth. And I feel like that this could be really kind of funneled in, or the water of the moon in Pisces can really just rush into our own voice, our own expression, our own sovereign nature of just breaking the chains, right? Releasing our inhibitions. But it's activated, I think, the most when we allow ourselves to take the full range of the quantum realm, the full astral experience, getting into our Akash, which was a big part of this week, and then applying that, investing that into our voice, into our external expression, which is the sun, which is really about breaking the chains, of releasing our inhibitions, right, in the material, right, realizing that there is more than just this earthly mortal coil, and that there's no there's clearly meaning behind it, but the meaning is really derived a lot from the human interactions. This is where we start to get into there's more than this material world, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So that was really important. So this is overnight, getting into this. And so when we start to get into this territory, which again was overnight, Pallas Athena, let's move over to that chart. I think that's going to help things make a little bit more sense. This is Pallas Athena, 18 to 19 degrees of Pisces. So you see that there is a connection here. And then Venus and Juno are both in Capricorn, and they're conjunct today as well. So I just want to show you that this is looks like it's probably 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we know that this is happening also overnight. So let's go back to this chart so we can look at it, and it's a little bit easier. Okay, so, 18 to 19 degrees, meeting Pallas Athena, the goddess of strategy. So all this goddess energy is really, really strong. All of this divine feminine energy is very, very strong. And something else that's going to happen over the next couple of days is the moon's going to meet Eris, which is, asteroid Eris, the goddess of chaos, is down here in Aries. So that's something to keep in mind as the moon moves over that point. But right now, what we're finding here is the moon in this conjunction with Pallas Athena, 19 degrees of Pisces is, let's find her. It's a master instructing the disciple, right? It's a transfer of power and knowledge. It's a direct transmission. So, I mean, and when you're talking about Pallas Athena, you're talking about wisdom, strategy, right? This is a very masculine aspect of the feminine that is very much in the mind. Like I said, wisdom, strategy in war. Think about like playing chess, right? Think about tactical stuff. That this is a Pallas Athena, but from not an outwardly active position necessarily, but from an inner knowing and then crafting the tactics and the strategy as a result, right? She's got Bubo, her owl, right? And owls are, for all of their dark omen, right? Because they do see what most others don't see, representing the ability to see in the darkness or to have vision where you normally don't. So this is a transfer of power and knowledge, right? This is an undeviated transfer of power and knowledge in a spiritual way. So clarification, elucidation, and the personality really comes into its own in this degree, and as it is able to direct its own destiny. So this goes really well back with what Emily was talking about earlier of, focusing on what we choose to do. And for all of the ability to direct our own destiny, right? Our own personality grows and comes into its own. And part of that is this undeviated transfer of power and knowledge. And a lot of people are getting that. And, Pallas has come into this position only in the last, I'd say, I mean, if we really look at it, in the last day or so, right? Even yesterday, she hadn't totally been here. So you could feel the build up to this. And so the moon meeting this, I mean, a lot of people just got a really strong transmission in some way, shape, or form. And then to have it right after this come into a sextile, not only with Venus, but also in conjunction with Juno. So something I was just doing a little research about Juno. And, Hera in Greek mythology, right? She's the wife of Zeus, also the sister of Zeus, because she is the daughter of Saturn, just like the other gods of Olympus are all the children of Saturn, Kronos, or the Lord of Time. So, and all the, these gods, especially Nina and Vesta and Ceres, they are all her sisters, right? So Juno will, there's like this punishment aspect to Juno because she really does. She is like the ward, or not the ward. That's not the right word. She's the protector of the state. And sometimes she's even referenced as like the protector of women in general. But she's the protector of the state. She actually holds the scales, or she like gives out the sentencing for the balancing the scales that Venus ultimately does, right? So you have Venus and Juno together now at 20 degrees Capricorn, which is really about the resonance that we're all creating by coming together and creating for the entire group to find a sense of community and connection. So the Sabian symbol is this hidden choir that's singing at a service, a religious service. And so if you've ever sang, if whatever kind of church or religious participation you've been involved in, if you sang in the choir, sometimes they are not they're not visible to the congregation. They're set back because it's not about them. It's about them fulfilling a role in this collective way that's creating a resonance. And that resonance actually shapes the matrix of the material reality or the community. And so this is where Venus is now. This is where Juno is right now. There is a sense of balancing the scales and also balancing the social scales as a result in terms of what has been, I would say, what resonance has been created behind the scenes and behind the out of view of the congregation, right? Out of the view of humanity that has been giving us something to worship, right? And with Venus in its retrograde meeting Juno, this is, if it has not been of the highest, right? If it's been some sort of hidden mechanism that has been attempting to steer this material matrix, the new one, in a new direction, rather than it being fully sovereign, this is going to find its it will find its resolution. It will come to light. And part of this is the moon sextile over here, because this degree is like the table is already set, right? We feel it, we know it, we can intuit and subconsciously merge with this reality. The table is already set, and at the right time, right, everything will come together as it needs to. And this is about surrendering to that and trusting that. And again, sextile, this means an activation or an investment into what this is. And we all have to be very clear with ourselves, right down into our bodies and into the impact on how the impact it has on the people and the situations that have real meaning and value to us. And we're reconsidering that. And Juno will absolutely step in as a judge, right? We've talked about the adjustment card has a very strong Saturnian element, right? Adjustment, number 8 in the tarot. The Libra card, it has a very strong Saturnian nature. Well, Juno is like the agent of that. You know, she is the one. Oh man, I'm getting this Queen of Swords vibes really strong right now. And I remember that came out this week in its reversal. She is the protector of the state, and she'll come in and give out the sentencing, right? She will make sure that what needs to happen in order to balance these scales is going, and she will advocate for it. She will make sure it happens. And sometimes there is, it can seem like a punishment, or it can seem like revenge too. That's something to consider as well. So this is all happening overnight. So, and then we haven't even gotten to the moon meeting right after that. The moon meets Neptune. So leading up to this morning has been this incredible revealing, I feel like, and a re-establishment or realignment, and a very strong connection to the end of this cycle, and just letting ourselves go to it, right? The moon meeting Neptune is just like, a full experience of what is coming, and surrendering ourselves, not in complacency or apathy, but to the will of Source and to the will of God, and to allow that to let us flow into our next phase, right? Our next phase of existence. And again, Pisces in the 12th house can turn into apathy. It can turn into complacency. It can turn into escapism, fantasy. It can turn into isolation, right? It can turn into martyrdom and victimhood. All of these are potentials in Pisces and the 12th house. And, the moon meeting Neptune, there's nothing to dissolve with the moon. It's already there. And so what you get is just an amplification, or you look into the magic mirror and you're like, oh, okay, I see now, and I can feel it. What is coming. And it really has a lot to do, I think, where we are at individually is going to have a lot to do with our own energetic resonance at that time. And there is something really profound here about Venus and Juno coming together, because when Venus and the sun come together tomorrow, this is where it's going to be like time to put your big kid pants on. Like, are you, which choir are you going to be participating in? What do you want to be part of creating that actually inspires people and brings them to a state of oneness with each other and their community and the new earth that we're going to, right? It's important that we're putting into place these templates and energetic structures now with all of this energy in Capricorn, because it's going to matter later. Because once the energetic template is set, this is where everything manifests from. And it's going to be the moon in Aries. It's going to be our first real challenge to the burning down of everything that needs to go, right? Because we still need that spark of our own humanity and our own compassion to be there in the face of all of this other Capricorn stuff. It's not easy. I mean, Capricorn is about power, and the sun in Capricorn is like the full expression of the power, of the security and the just the stability of the material world that we've created. So as we move through today, of course, this is still going to turn into a long stream. I already can feel it. We already talked about all that. The moon met Neptune. Okay, and so what it really does seem to amount to, as the moon then moves through the rest of her transit today, before moving into Aries, we're going to find that there is another sextile. All these sextiles from the Pisces moon over to Capricorn, and this one is with Pluto, right? And this is about a culmination moment, right? The moon comes to a moment of fulfillment that blesses the work well done, right? This is a moment of culmination. This is like a benediction, right? Sextile Pluto, right? Pluto, the agent of transformation as a result of destruction, metamorphosis, right? Creation is the process of simultaneously destroying, giving over, and then rebirth, right? But there's something that we have to give away, that we have to accept and surrender ourselves to, right? And see it as fulfillment, see it as work well done. And when we are able to, again, apply that, invest that into the Pluto and Capricorn, that is really just taking away through its own processes, all of the pathways up the mountain that we have come to rely upon, right? The spiritual upreaching and the ascension process, quote unquote, that has been already formulated over years and years and years. And you have to ask yourself, who has been creating these pathways to begin with and why? And if they're still even valid? Well, I would argue with Pluto here, we're going to really transform what that actually means. And there is something very there is something very culminating about that we can really feel into and lean into with this sextile and really activate the process of Pluto as a transformation, as opposed to just focusing on what is being taken away. And it's very real and it's very raw, and it shouldn't be squashed. We have to be able to simultaneously live in these two places. And this has been part of the Gemini archetype for the last 18 months or so, 20 months, that the North Node has been in Gemini, right? Is learning and becoming masters of this, right? The Gemini aspect is so important, right? It's not that the duality in itself is false. It's just not the only thing, right? This is where we create from. So culmination by the end of today, and a connection to asteroid Ceres, of course, who is in conjunction with the Pleiades right now. I mean, if you need any more indication that at a physical Earth level, right, Gaia herself, asteroid Ceres, the function of the seasons and the necessary cycle of expansion and contraction that is part of our seasonal growing cycle. If you need any more indication that, we are getting into the realm of being firmly in tune to the natural world, it's Ceres in conjunction with the Pleiades right now. So, of course, there's going to be another sextile on the other end of things, with the moon in sextile to Ceres over here, just so close to the North Node. They're going to meet each other in such a short amount of time, and it's going to start getting much more focused, less focused on the realm of knowledge and mind and concepts, and way more experiential in the feels. That's going to be our soul's work over the next and resources. Oh my gosh, the economy and the aspect of resources and what we produce in particular, it's going to be a big theme in the next 2 years. I can't stress that enough. And that'll be something we talk about with the Pleiadian revival. But by the end of the day, the moon comes into like probably the weakest point of Pisces, which is fully preparing for the differentiation back into seed points and making connections with Ceres, making connections with Vesta at the very last degree of Sagittarius, right? About to go into Capricorn, right? And so by the end of today, so much culmination, right? And I feel like we're going to start getting some energy back coming into the 8th. So let's look at that. Let's see here. This is where Venus and the Sun come into conjunction. Jupiter moves into the next degree of Pisces. We're going to talk about that. And let's see what else. Yes. The sun comes into a sextile with Pallas Athena, getting us ready for the sextile to Neptune that's going to happen this week. And the moon is going to also meet Chiron tomorrow on the 8th. So let's go back and look at that. First, we're going to see the moon, like I talked about. It's going to come into this connection with the nodes. It's going to be in a sextile to the north node and a trine to the south node, right? That trine is a foundation. It's a fire trine, right? There won't be any need to do anything in order to find that very foundational support between the emergence of a fresh, new, creative impulse that we're going to feel inside of ourselves, and the meaning of everything, the meaning of our relationships, the meaning of the truth, the meaning of why we even come together is very much exemplified in those first degrees, 0 degrees. And we talked about this before, that in galactic astrology, those 0 degrees are the crack between the worlds. And so this is another, much more of a harmonious moment, because you have a trine with the south node and of course a sextile with the north node. And that first degree of Aries is emerging out of the ocean of the unconscious collective, emerging out of the ocean of the Akash, emerging out of the woo, right? We're going to start feeling ourselves just then coming out of that. And we have a moment here where we can capitalize or harness the momentum of where we've been, of this 0 degrees of Sagittarius, and really use that to propel us forward and to kind of activate this sextile with where we're going, which is the north node at 0 degrees Gemini, Alcyon, right? The main star in the Pleiades star cluster, and certainly the glass bottom boat, right? Where we have the mind with its own intact ego consciousness, that has the first moment where we realize we are in fact separate from everything around us. And this is where consciousness of the human comes from, is this first degree of, this movement through Gemini. So this sextile is like, we're going to start feeling ourselves emerging from the space, whereas at a soul level, we are at a soul level, we see the entirety of the space as an observer, right? But our own individual feelings, right? I mean, as an individual feeling based person is going to start emerging, start feeling the emergence of that creative spark and the essence of who we are starting to come out of the woo, out of the collective unconscious. And it's at, like I said, a soul level that we are able to be the observer. This is really, really important as we turn over into tomorrow, okay? And then, oops, that's not the right day. Mercury is still in Aquarius, okay? And is soon we're gonna have a Mercury retrograde this coming week. We have to keep that in mind too, right? There may be some really, we may have been getting a lot of information, and we're gonna have to process it. And that retrograde is something to consider, right? Things may seem like they go sideways in terms of information and our mental state and how we are really processing this very high energy information and just gnosis of Aquarius, holding the full energetic experience of the collective. We're going to have to take some time to process it, and this Mercury retrograde is going to be big on that. So, but the moon comes and makes a sextile, another sextile. There's a lot of masculine sextiles and feminine sextiles in this weekend's astrology. Plenty of activation, harmonious activation moments here. Now, the moon comes into a sextile with Mercury in Aquarius, right? 7 degrees. I feel like that there's an awareness of there's an awareness at a mental level, right? Our ability to plug into these new collective developments, right? There'll be some measure of mental or conceptual interaction that will allow us to be inspired to where we're going, that we will see some type of example, right? That's of where we're going and the new collective developments. And the sextile to the moon in Aries is really about like letting the energy of spirit come into us and know that we are simultaneously protected and simultaneously simultaneously being influenced and subtly influenced, right? I mean, the breath of life coming over us, and just so we know that it's there, right? This again will be a sextile, so we can take that, and that will allow us to, I think, really have a lot clearer view of what it is that we are seeing in our mind's eye, right? Especially with Mercury in Aquarius, that really is like our mind's eye in a lot of ways, and the function of it. So there is a sense that we are protected, but also being very subtly influenced by spirit, in our own intuition, in our dream state, in how we feel. And again, we can apply this and invest this into the mental processes that are happening right now, and that's going to, in some ways, provide us with a vision or a something very substantial but not real. It's like it's an archetype that we're going to see of like where we're going and the new collective developments. Again, this has a lot to do with how we have been feeling with this moon in Pisces, and really what parts of ourselves we are really surrendering to this process, because we will then know that we are simultaneously being influenced by spirit, but also not given more than we can handle, right? When we do that, then we can see that maybe those new collective developments that we see in our mind's eye that have a shape, they have a form, they're even endowed with like clothing in some ways that are really attractive to us. There's a reason that they're still preformed, right? We're still not quite there yet because we have a Mercury that's going to go retrograde and go back over this point. So that's something to consider, is that it's just this subtle, like, the subtle blow of wind, right? The subtle wind that just kind of barely flutters the streamers around our hat. You know what I mean? And right after that, the moon comes and meets Chiron tomorrow. So right after that experience, all of a sudden, it's just like, the welling up of all of these all of these identities of woundedness and victimhood and the inner child that isn't really being seen. Like all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I feel like there'll be an overwhelm of emotion in some ways when these two meet again. And that's that I feel like that, right, and then to have that subtlety right beforehand with Mercury and Aquarius, and then right after that, it's kind of like a fully boiling pot of water. It's in some ways where we're like, ouch, right? Oh yeah, that's right. These are all the ways that I can get pulled off of my focus on creating the person that I know that I am, and to really engage with the potential of who I could be in spirit, as opposed to the superimposed Chiron issues around ourself, right? This has been part of the dissolution of the individual and the idea that the ego in and of itself is what is the enemy, and it's really not. It's the fact that there's dysfunction in this process to begin with, and with that, we're all so easy to control if we don't have a strong sense of self. And Chiron and Aries right now is like our training ground for this. So having a very personal experience of this again on Saturday is going to come up to the surface, I think. So just be aware of that, and for other people around you as well that are just like not even remotely checked into what any of this means. You're gonna see it. It'll come up. So right after, let's see. Yep. And then right after that is when you can see here that the moon or the sun and Venus are about to come into their conjunction. So that's close enough by the end of Saturday, right? And this Sabian symbol is like a little child, like a 5-year-old that's like carrying groceries, right? It is this, and look at this. This is culmination all day long, right? You have these two 18s that lead up to 9. You have Mars that is traveling in a semi-sextile right now with both of them. Also at an 8 + 1, which is 9. 999. I mean, this is culmination to the nth degree. And this particular degree that we find Mars at on the 8th is about there's going to be a real strong push to get to a place that is much safer, right? This is about, realizing that where we are is not going to be a safe place to raise our young, and really acting on that, getting all of us to a place where people can feel safe. And there's a lot about this accelerated growth that's going to be brought into the mix when these two come together. The value of stepping into a position of responsibility and maybe stepping up when you don't feel ready is going to be really, really supported in this particular conjunction by the end of Saturday. And some people are not going to be ready, and maybe they don't want to be carrying groceries, right? They're 5 years old and they're like, but right? They're immature and still young, maybe still mentally young, spiritually young, but we're all going to have an opportunity to kind of step into this. And Mars traveling in that semi-sextile with them is really going to push us to find safer territory, for sure. But it's not the entire puzzle, right? It's just a piece of it. And it's a semi-sextile. That's a 30-degree angle, right? That's only one half of the sextile, right? You need the other part of it in order to complete the pattern, right? You only have one aspect of the pattern right now. So there's certainly some drive behind this. And then by the end of Saturday. So when we move to the 9th, which is our first quarter moon, you can see it right here. It's first going to square Venus, and then it's going to come and square the sun. And I talked a lot more about this on the actual weekly astrology report that's going to be put up right after this. I'm going to upload it and then start working on the astrology forecasts for the signs. But before we even get to that, I wanted to talk about Saturn too. Here's Saturn. So right after that particular connection with Chiron, we see that the moon. So this is possibly as the day turns over. You can see it's 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So technically probably on the 9th, at least where I'm at. So late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, the moon is going to another sextile with Saturn, by the way. Saturn in Aquarius. Now, if we were to go back to, we'll talk about this later. This is going to come up on a different report. But the sextile right now is very important because this is a lot of frustration that has been building and building and building. 12 to 13 degree Aries is going to be building, and there's something very important where Saturn is right now in Aquarius, that if we can really tap into the security and the authority of Saturn in this position, we're going to see the causal factor of what's going to happen. There's nothing that can stop what's coming, right? And Saturn is in a position right now where the very nature of time and material security, right, and the authority that Saturn represents is showing us what's going to happen, right, based on nothing more than a natural progression of factors, right? This is where Saturn is in Aquarius. And so the sextile to a moon, a very frustrated moon in Aries, mind you, right? Like, we want things to happen immediately because we see the full potential and we see what's going to happen. See, that's the thing. We know what's going to happen. We have Saturn there pretty much saying, listen, everything in the collective is acting as a barometer for what is going to progress, just like a change in pressure is going to be it's a reasonable conclusion or forecast that there's going to be a shift in the weather, right? And so it's very much fundamentally embedded in the sands of time right now, and certainly in the structure of the collective. Like, you just have to read the collective to know what's coming. And again, there is an activation and certainly an investment that can be made into that to really quell a lot of this frustration of wanting it now, right? We feel like we want it now. We have this adolescent frustration, we want to let off this bomb and it's not. And that's because it's not time yet. So this sextile, again, is going to be so much sextile energy this weekend. It's really quite remarkable. So when we come into the 9th, of course, this is going to be where we have the first quarter square. And so right here, the moon squares Venus in her retrograde, and 19 degrees. This is again where the sun and Venus were in their conjunction. And so 19 degrees of Aries is like, how do we, we want to like maybe emotionally transcend, get on our little magic carpet here and transcend this whole situation as an individual subjective being, especially in our own emotions. Maybe we kind of fantasize about it a little bit. Maybe we, feel into our ability to transcend and be unattached to this process. But again, the square is going to be like, well, no. We have a responsibility here. We have a responsibility to ourselves to step up and take step into a situation of maybe accelerated growth, maybe when you're not ready to do something. So that's going to, right away, look at that on Sunday. It's really going to be like, no, I don't want to do it, right? I'm going to be on my magic carpet and I'm just going to stay up here. And I'm not saying that that's not important way to go about things. Believe me, I know that this particular degree of Aries is actually very... is important to have an unattached outlook as your own ego is forming, because this is where, it really, a lot of types of subconscious programming really starts, because there is no ability to do this, or you do it to the point where you're fragmented completely. And I think that that's really going to make itself known a lot as Venus is still in this degree of where it met with the sun, which is it's time to step up and put on our big kid pants and maybe do some things that we're not really emotionally ready for. But sometimes you just have to step up and pull your weight, even though it seems like it's too early to do so. And we're going to want to, I feel like the real challenge here is like, we're going to want to act in accordance to our own feelings of ourselves. And then the moon comes into a square right after that with the sun, right? On Sunday afternoon, roughly midday on Sunday. And again, this is the young girl feeding the birds, right? This is the thumbnail image for this particular week. This is the energy of the first quarter moon, and strangely enough is our crisis here, because 20 degrees of Capricorn, like we talked about earlier, with Juno meeting Venus right now, it's that hidden choir, right? It becomes very, we find our voice, literally. We are singing. Each of us is participating in this particular body of individuals that are creating a collective harmonic resonance that is giving the larger community an opportunity to worship, to find meaning, to all commune together, right? And we're really finding our voice here. But what is it about ourselves deeply within, how we feel about, we want to have a direct connection to our own compassion and to actually assist those in real time, like through our own individual subjective experience of helping those who can't really help themselves right now. Why is this a crisis? Well, because when we think about the new moon and letting it all burn, right, we will feel this split here. And this is the beginning of the burn. Is Aries, right? So we have to kind of give ourselves some space emotionally to find the spark within us, right? Rather than staying highly focused, or I would say rather than staying entirely focused over here, right? You don't resolve squares. You just lean into them. You're like, this is really uncomfortable. And then you learn something. And we have cardinal energy. So you know that each trajectory is going with momentum. So when they meet each other, they could spin off, right? And people could either drop out of this choir. They could reinforce what they're doing and double down on it, not even questioning. They could let the and just totally ignore the spark within them, or the spark within you, right? That's just like, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm just going to focus on what's, going to allow me to feel a sense of self and compassion, and not even think about like what that is participating in creating. Interesting square. And again, letting it burn. This is the beginning of the burning, is this moon in Aries, right? And so if we don't give ourselves the space to actually like address this and how, get into our feels, we're allowed to be angry, right? We're allowed to feel into our own self-interest. We're allowed to, this is the essence of who we are. Like, this is our birthright, is to just be ourselves. And cardinal fire is the spark of life. And if there is no fire without the spark, right? So we have to give ourselves the opportunity to at least feel into this, so that we can, when we get to this full moon in Cancer, right? Moon in Cancer, 28 degrees. The sun will be in conjunction with the natal Pluto of the United States at this full moon. It's on the 17th. We will get to see where our power really is coming from and how strong it actually is. And in the face of the destruction of our prison, essentially. And I get into way more of that, of course, in the actual weekly astrology. So you can go to that if that's in order to get much more information in terms of the first quarter moon, the second lunar quarter. I go into the whole week about it, and then I also go into the full moon a little bit. So keep an eye out for that. So my friends, I think that's gonna do it for today. Wow, just an hour, an hour and 15. So I always think that these streams are gonna be it just once the channeling starts to happen, that's just all there is to it. So one thing I do want to let you know, though, is the weekly astrology report, the general report, is only like a half hour. So that's a good thing. So I'll get the marquee tarot up soon. Right after this, I'll pull the panels and put it up on Telegram. That's been kind of fun so far. If you're interested in a reading, if you're interested in energy work to support your process, you can follow any of the links in the description box below that have to do with the website, email, and social media, which is Telegram. You can also stick around at the end of this video and get some more information about how to support this work financially through Subscribestar, and how to get to my website. Everything you need is at the website, including services, all my testimonials, right? Access to all of the content, of course. And then you can get on my mailing list as well. That is something that you can do from the homepage of the website. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're waiting for your free micro reading from the gift exchange, that's going to be all happening next week. That's when I've slated it for. So just keep an eye out too. If you're not subscribed, of course, you can do that on any of the platforms you're finding me on, and that allows you to be able to know when I upload videos, when I go live. And certainly I'm going to be uploading all of the sign astrology forecast today and through the weekend. So that way you'll know when your particular sign or signs are uploaded, and you can check it out. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Telegram, and I will see you for the daily medicine transmission on Monday. Take care of yourself. I love you. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.